Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In today's video, we prepared 4 great stories for you, but before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I was a manager at a pub/restaurant, and a lady tried to make me fire the owner. I worked at a pub/restaurant and am a manager for the night shift. Our policy is that managers should be trained in all roles of the pub so they can help out everyone. Even the owner helps jobs just for the heck of it. That's important later. When I started working, I was the jack of all trades of the pub. I started out as a host and busser and later got trained in bartending and server work. If there was an employee who needed help, I was the go-to guy. This helped me to become a manager later in life. One night, we were very packed and I was working host. One of the younger bussers needed help and was falling behind in his job. I asked the owner to cover me at the host desk while I cleared the floodgates of backed up dishes. Sweet Lord, there were like 5 bus tubs of dishes, and my best friend, the dishwasher, was PO'd when he saw all the dishes come in at once. When I returned back towards the front desk, I saw a woman screaming at the owner, asking for the manager. He looks up at me and calls me over. He introduces me as the manager. She then lets out the Banshee Insider and tells me that this man is incompetent at his job and wants me to fire him and give her a free meal as well as gift coupons. Entitled much? I tell her that I will go talk to the owner and make sure our host is scolded. I bring my boss with me to the office and we just start laughing our butts off, then walk back out and tell her, here's the owner. Do you have anything you'd like to discuss with him? Her face went bright red. Turns out she wanted to sit her and her 2 kids at the only available 10-top table, and we had a family of 12 coming in for it. The look on her face was priceless when she realized she'd been screaming at the owner. Boss and me still laugh about this to this day and share drinks after hours, cackling about how silly she acted. It was a great night. I still work at this pub to this day and am content with the restaurant bustle. And our second story. Go to our manager when you screw up? Sure thing. So, I used to work with this guy, let's call him Billy. At first, Billy was an okay guy when he started and was getting trained up. Billy decided that this department wasn't for him and transfers out to a field position. Billy decides 2 months later that he wants to come back, and there's an opening for him. Billy's no longer an okay guy at this point. Billy became very, very bad at the job he was doing. He only had about a month's training in the position before he left, and when he came back, he refused any further attempts to train him. He figured that since he was with us 3 months, that his training period was over, even though 2 of the 3 months were in another department. He was big into one-upsmanship and lied through his teeth to seem cooler than other people at anything. So Billy screwed up. A customer had an issue that Billy handled while he was the only one here. He didn't do it right and inconvenienced the customer for later, when the customer called me. Not a huge deal, but caused by a lack of following procedure from good old Billy Boy. I fixed it, have proof that it was him, and shoot him an email, as I worked nights to his days and never saw him. Reminded him that he needs to make sure to do it properly from now on. His response via email, I did it right. Who do you think you are telling me what to do? If you think I did something wrong, then you need to go to our manager. Don't come to me about it. You're not my boss. A. I do have every right to point out your mistakes, Mr. Trainee. B. I do have every right to tell you what to do. While you are in training, I am your boss for all intents and purposes. You've been in the department for a total of a month and a half to my 2 years. I know what I'm doing far more than you. If I tell you you did something wrong, trust me, you did it wrong. C. Tell our boss? Oh, you got it. So begins my quest. I don't even have to try hard to find things that Billy is effing up. Constantly failing to fill out information in a critical log? Check. Failing to follow procedures and screwing over customers? Check. Failing to do something that we're required by our contract with our client to do? Check. So every day, my manager gets an email about him and all the screw-ups I find. After about a week, my manager takes me aside before I leave and asks me why I'm emailing her and not helping to train him by pointing out his mistakes. So I show her Billy's email showing that he's refusing help and inform her that everyone else is getting the same attitude from him. He got written up for unprofessional behavior and one more for failing to follow our procedures. He was told he needed to improve quickly. He did not improve quickly, and before he could be fired, he quit, claiming he had a better job, and we never heard from him again. We don't even have a hard job. Sure, it's a little procedure heavy, but it's a desk job where you answer a few phone calls and radio calls. He had no college education and had kids to support. This job was about the best he could hope to find in this city. And our third story. Why you shouldn't scream at people who book your flights. A few years ago, when I had just started my first office job, our CFO had both little man syndrome and alcoholic rage. He started screaming at one of our employees on the phone about something that wasn't anyone's fault. I think it had to do with a delivery date from one of our vendors. I could hear the screaming clear across the office, and a crowd started to form. Unfortunately, everyone was sort of used to it. This was the kind of guy who wasn't allowed to have a wireless mouse because he kept raging out and throwing them against the wall. One day later, after traveling to a conference getting hammered, and if history taught us anything, cheating on his wife, he wanted an earlier flight home. His assistant was out, so I was trying to cover for her and move his flight up. While he was yelling at me and telling me it shouldn't take as long as I was taking, so I told him the flight he wanted was booked, and had the airline put him back on one that was almost full and seat him in the back, in a middle seat, right in front of the bathroom. No reclining. A huge storm came in and he ended up sitting on the runway, questioning his life choices for several hours. With all the delays, he got in a little later than his original flight, and it makes me smile every time I think about how it gave him some time to sit there and think about what he'd done. He must have been going insane inside his head, but he couldn't yell at anyone. And our last story. Got everyone fired because they were jerks to me. I worked at a townhome community as a leasing agent for 2 months. The job sucked and I had to work on the weekends, but the manager agreed to let me have Mondays and Tuesdays off. If I didn't get a weekend, I at least wanted Mondays off because they suck. I worked by myself 95% of the time. From the beginning, I was barely trained and had no confidence in my job performance. I had no one to call when I had questions either. The assistant manager, Lisa, gave me her login information in case anything I ever did needed a supervisor override. That's how little either managers were around. I was always by myself. When I first started, I went to lunch with another leasing agent, Jessica, who worked at our sister property. She was nice, but talked crap on the company real quick. She told me that petty cash for her property had been short $50 a few months ago, and Amanda, manager of both properties, had used her own money to force balance it. They both had to sign off on it for audit purposes. Another tidbit. I had to input rent payments into a program on our system. Lisa informed me that she lived in apartment 205, so that would always show up as not paid because it was different since she was living there. She told me just to ignore it and that I never had to worry about it. Labor Day is always on a Monday, so we were closed that day. When I came to work on Wednesday, the assistant manager, Lisa, informed me that I would have to start working on Mondays because they were just so busy. I was PO'd. I took the job on the condition that I would have Mondays off. I also was told I wouldn't be paid holiday time for Labor Day because it was a Monday and I had that day off. So I was like, thanks for deciding that I have to work Mondays after the Monday holiday. I was pretty open about my annoyance, but whatever. So later on in the day, I'm checking my personal email, and I have an email from Career Builder. I still get these emails. I'm used to them. I had a profile on there with my resume and just never took it down. Well, Lisa pops up behind me when I'm looking at this email and calls and narks on me to Amanda. Amanda calls and is basically asking me what my problem is and blah, blah, blah. She told me Jessica told her that I was negative when we went to lunch that day, and I was just talking trash the whole time. I finally told her I was done with the job, and she told me to give her my written 2-week notice. The next day, I went to leave the property to go pick up lunch, and Lisa waltzes in as I'm leaving. She gives me some crappy smirk. When I got back from lunch, she was gone. I got on my computer, and my email was all arranged weird. It was arranged by sender instead of by date. I was PO'd. I knew that B had been going through my email, so I remembered that she gave me her login info, and I logged into her crap to see how she liked it. There were several emails exchanged between Lisa and Amanda calling me a brat and a B and just talking all kinds of crap. I tried to dig up any information about Lisa living in 205, but nothing existed. Everyone else had a folder of info, but there was none for 205. There was not a spare key either. She was living there for free, and I knew it. So I decided to email the main guy who worked at corporate. I told him Lisa was living on the property and what her apartment number was. I told him about the petty cash fraud, the going through my email, then never being there, etc. I left my work shirt provided by the company along with my keys and had the maintenance guy sign off on a paper saying I did just that. Then I took a copy and left the property. I turned off my phone and changed the voicemail to the message you get when someone has their phone turned off. These chicks weren't exactly brilliant. I got a call from the maintenance guy later that evening telling me that Amanda did try to call me and thinks my phone is off, and he had to help Lisa move all of her crap out of her apartment that day. It wasn't fast enough, because the guy I emailed flew in the next day and cleaned house. Lisa and Amanda were both fired. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.